Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Allison, and we are Functional Training Zone. Today, we are going to be talking to Brianna Amingwa, who is the founder of Deeply Rooted. She is a passionate environmentalist, and this is the Uncommon Connector podcast. Yay!
There is no one else in creation like you. There's nobody like you. And what you've come to do and what you have to offer is like no other.
Okay, Brianna, we are really excited to talk to you today. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. And thank you for having me too, Amanda. I appreciate it. Super excited to talk to you today. My name is Brianna Amingwa. I am the founder of Deeply Rooted Outdoor Education. I spend all my time helping and working to connect people with nature. So Deeply Rooted is my own business. I've recently started working full time in my business. I've been a long time park ranger before this for about 13 years. Before starting Deeply Rooted, I've been a park ranger. And now I get to do all those things for communities that need it most. So really excited to talk to you about it today.
Great, great, great. Thank you. So we're going to start from the very beginning, right? Not necessarily birth, but like, how did you get started becoming like involved in the environment? We all live in the environment.
Yeah.
So, but becoming an environmentalist is completely different than we should all be environmentalists, right? We
Mm-hmm.
should all do our part to help the environment in terms of, you know, putting our garbage in the proper places, recycling, but
Mm-hmm.
it goes beyond that. So tell me how you got started with this at a young age.
Yeah, great question. So as a kid, I have always loved animals. My favorite thing on TV was Animal Planet. I was obsessed with dogs and cats. I would watch the vet shows nonstop and ask my mom to get us animals all the time, which I was often told no to that.
Mhm.
So I went to Girl Scouts when I was younger, and we had like a day on the farm, and they let me ride a horse. And I was like probably, 8 or 9 at the time. Sat on the back of a horse, and I was like, okay, this is way better than cats. I'm now into horses. How about you get me a horse? And mind you, we live in Metro Detroit in Michigan. There is nowhere to have a horse, ride a horse. It was not happening, which she obviously told me. So she took me to the bookstore and let me pick out a couple books about horses. And I'm telling you, Amanda, I got like The Idiot's Guide to Horses, the Encyclopedia of the Horse, and I read all those books cover to cover, which took me a couple years because I was a kid. And it wasn't until I was in middle school that my grandmother met a person who knew a person who was a Michigan black horseman. And he had a farm that he would let kids come up on the weekend and ride his horses for free. And all he had to do afterwards was help him clean up and tack and shovel shovel the poop and everything else. So I finally got to ride a horse years after that with a black horseman, a guy named Doug Lewis, and I was hooked from then on. We went to a trail ride. I started doing 4-H, which is an organization that helps you learn about farming and growing food and taking care of animals, animal husbandry, it's called. So we went on a trail ride, a weekend trail ride. I was totally unprepared, me and my mom for camping. We slept in our car because we didn't even have a tent. We had no idea how to do it. But it was a camping trip with the horses. And we went and rode through the woods in northern Michigan, and I had never seen anything like it. I was shocked. Like we're on this trail ride with about 40 horses and they're calling out, okay, here's like where the bear den is, and this is where, this clearing is and these trees. And I was blown away that all that was out there. And I had never been immersed in that kind of environment and that kind of habitat. So that kind of got my interest going in learning more about nature and of course continuing horseback riding and doing all that. And it wasn't until I got to college I went to school for animal science, of course, so I could study more animals, even though it was more of a farm animal degree. And I've joined an organization called Manners, which was minorities in agriculture, natural resources, and related sciences. And there's a lot of chapters all around the country. And did a career fair there and met somebody from the Student Conservation Association. And I was like, what is this about? So that's animals, wildlife refuge. Let me go talk to them at this table. When I was there talking to them, they were like, we actually just had somebody cancel their internship and back out. Are you interested in interviewing for it? I was like, okay, sounds nice. Went in the hallway, got on the phone with the wildlife refuge manager, did an on-the-spot interview, and they hired me for this internship at a national wildlife refuge. So that's how I originally got all the way out into nature. I was in my freshman summer of college, working in Ohio, about 2 hours from home at Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. And it was like a complete culture shock being in that kind of environment and totally just outside all day on a biology internship. And tragically, I also hated it. I hated it, man. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I was like, I was outside all day, hot, summertime, sweating, and my main job was to find this endangered plant, which was called the fringed orchid. It grows about like 16 inches tall, and it grows in the marsh. So all the other marsh grasses are like 7 or 8 feet tall. So all day you're just going through the marsh like this, wearing waders, walking through mud and water, looking for this little tiny plant, and with your little GPS unit trying to find one. I was terrified. I had never been into nature like that. I was like, there's got to be an alligator in here. I just know something bad's going to happen to me. Of course, it's Ohio. There ain't no alligators. But my mind felt like there was. And there was one day they let me go out with one of the park rangers, and she had a Nature Tots program that she let me sit in for. And it was all little kids and their parents. And I watched her teach. I watched the kids learn. And I was like, okay, now this I could do. This I would much rather do than the biology portion. Yeah. So that got me interested in doing education and environmental work. And they offered me a bigger internship after that. And I said, I will take it if you let me do visitor services and not biology. And that's kind of where it started from there. Mhm.
Okay, I have to ask this question. Did you
Wait,
ever find the plant?
yes, yes. I can tell you that the entire 8 week, no, it's a 12-week internship. I found a total of nine individual plants the whole summer.
Okay, nine of those endangered plants. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that,
Yes,
like, as a
yes.
society, we did not lose this plant. Okay,
It's still
thank you
around. It's
for
called
that.
the Eastern Prairie Fringed Orchid. It's really pretty. It's white. It's got some funky petals, but it is absolutely endangered.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think I want to tell you a story. My daughter is an equestrian.
Yeah.
She is into horses. She loves horses. She is like a true horse girl. She can be outside all day,
Mhm.
with the horses. And I'm listening to your story and I'm listening to the internship opportunities, and I'm thinking of those things for my daughter, somebody that's really, really into nature and loves being outside all day. Um, so again, could you just, I don't know if they still exist now, but for anybody that's listening to this, that's really, really into nature, really, really into conservation and loves to be outdoors, could you mention those two internships again, or programs in which somebody can look up to find them?
Yeah, so once you get to high school, even some of those opportunities are available. The main one I think of, and one of the kind of biggest ones nationwide, is the Student Conservation Association. They've got a like a blue logo, SCA, it's often called. They have community youth crews. So if you're a high school student, you can work on the weekends and be paid on, public lands and community improvement and trail building, all kinds of stuff like that. And then once you get to college, they also have college level internships that you can go and work all across the country. They'll pay to get you there, they'll pay you while you're there, and then bring you back home. So Student Conservation Association is still around and has lots of opportunities, and they list all theirs on their website, which is helpful. And you can apply through there. The other one I would say, once you get into college or are ready for that internship level, there's still Student Conservation Association, but going to and working in those, like being in those student groups, right? Like when you're on campus, joining those student organizations like Manners, Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. That one's MANNRS. That still exists as well. And it is nationwide. And they even have junior manners chapters at a lot of the HBCUs. where before you get to college, when you're in high school, when you're in middle school, you can join a junior manners chapter and work with college students and do all those things that you can look forward to doing later and figure out if it's really for you, right? Because I thought that I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna love being outside. I like outside. But once I got in that biology internship, it was a little more real than I thought it was gonna be, right? You
Right,
gotta deal with
right,
the
right.
weather, with bugs, with gear, with equipment. And I was not about that life as much as I thought I was. I'd much rather take the students out, do a few hours out there, and then come back in and, think about the comfort of the guests who are on the tour and do all that portion. That's the part I really get excited about, is seeing that change and excitement from folks. Not as much of the, fighting this plant and tracking it down and looking for these species. Like it's cool, but I think that was for others who have that interest. But I would not have known that unless I tried that biology internship. And what if you get all the way through college and you graduate, you get your job, and then you realize, I don't really like that. That's going to be even worse.
Right. So that's really what the Uncommon Connector is really all about. We want, individuals just like yourself to tell us your story, to tell us like, hey, I, thought that this was the road that I wanted, but, through mentoring, through internships, through self-discovery, I realized that not all paths are linear, and I got here because I did different things to realize what my true passion was. So
Mhm.
now you mentioned that your true passion really is the aspect of teaching and mentoring. What were some mentors in your life that helped you realize, okay, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, great question. And I could even say before I thought I wanted to do the biology, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I thought I was going to go to school to be a vet because that's the only job I knew of that you could work with animals, right? There's a lot of like lack of awareness about, oh, you could be a biologist, you could be a hydrologist who studies water movement, or you could be an environmental educator. I had never heard of those jobs, didn't even know they existed until I got to college and until I got on that internship. So that's a lot of, I'm so glad that Functional Training Zone does this kind of work to raise awareness about the variety of careers that are out there and not just, okay, your choices are doctor, lawyer, nurse, and veterinarian. There's more than that. So Doug Lewis, who I mentioned, who was the Black Horseman in Michigan, he was really instrumental in helping me learn about horses and getting that kind of connection and also getting university experiences too. He retired now, but he was a lawyer at University of Michigan. And my mom also got me into some pre-college programs. So they often have, if you look around the time, kind of like in this time coming up, January, February, it's when to get online for some of these universities you may be interested in and see if they have college experiences for high school students, for middle school students. She signed me up for one of them. It was a 3 week long engineering program because my dad was an engineer and my sister wanted to be an engineer. She's like, oh, you're going to love it, I promise. And she also let me do a 1 week long. She's like, if you do the 3 week engineering, then I'll let you go to the 1 week animal science course at Michigan State. And this was all when I was in high school. I was like about 13 or 14. So you go, you live on campus, you stay in a dorm, you go to the real classrooms, and you get those experiences. The 3 week engineering camp, I did not enjoy it, obviously. The good news is I did meet my husband there. So that worked out in the end. I'm glad I went. And then, yes, so that worked out well. But the week, once that ended, I had a 1 week experience at Michigan State University instead of U of M. U of M's the Wolverines and Michigan State's the Spartans. My sister went to U of M. I went to Michigan State. Obviously, the far superior school is the one I went to. And so when I was there for that 1 week doing like immersed with the scientists, working in a laboratory, studying like genetics of potato plants. And we were studying a potato plant that was going to be a new variety that could be grown in Africa, resistant to this moth that was depleting all the crops there. Right. So seeing how many environmental connections there are that connect to humans made a huge difference. So yeah, Doug Lewis was a mentor for me. When I got into the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, I had asked for mentors and got into mentorship programs. And even the lady I met on my first internship, who I went to her program, me and her are still great friends to this day. Her name is Laura Bono. And she was with me throughout my whole career. We worked in different places, but we always catch up and talk and support. So finding somebody who you just get along with and see eye to eye makes a huge difference. Even if they aren't your same age or don't have your same life or are just totally different than you can still learn a lot from them. So I think it's super valuable to have a mentor who you can just talk with on the regular.
Right. No, that is definitely super important. As I do these interviews, I realize that a lot of career professionals will say, "Oh, well, I had a mentor," and I think that we're afraid to ask people like, "Well, how did you get into this?"
Yeah.
But folks are willing to tell you. They're willing to help you. They're willing to, especially if it's something that they're really, really passionate about, to tell you about their career and how they got started.
Definitely.
So thank you for all of that. And also thank you for also telling us about all of the programs that, universities do have, because I think that a lot of families feel like, oh, well, when my
Yeah.
young adult gets to college, then they will get that experience. But there are oftentimes experiences that high school students can benefit from
hmm
before they get to college, especially if they know the route that they want to go.
Yeah, definitely. Even just to test it out. I mean, my mom, I remember we were living in Detroit and she got up because they were doing like a little, you could come and sign your kid up. We got up, we stood in line all this time so we could get our names on the list to do this pre-college program, right? Back then, that's what you had to do. Now you can probably just go online and, and do all that, right? But finding those like pre-college experiences that are low key, no pressure. We didn't pay anything to do that experience. The university offered it for free to come there and to do that. I had to put in an application. I had to practice, writing it and doing a little statement. It's going to take some work on your part, but it's going to get you the same skill you're going to need to apply for college later and to apply for a job later. So if you can do all those things beforehand and get practice at getting a yes or getting a no and keeping on moving, it's going to make a huge difference.
That's awesome. So we're not advertising this program, obviously, but what we're saying is that a lot of these programs are free. You just kind of have to do the legwork yourself in terms of the application and writing the statement as to why you're the best suited candidate.
Exactly. I think student conservation has like a little $15 fee that you have to do to apply for stuff, but you can even submit and ask for a waiver to have that fee removed. But most of them, and they should be for the most part, no cost, but they will require you to do some work. And that's when the having a mentor, having folks like you all at FTZ to look over your stuff to help you before you send it in. That makes your application so much stronger. And they know who they're assessing, right? They're not going to be holding you to some crazy high standard. They're looking for high schoolers. Your experience is still valid, even if you are younger, to get into that program. And then once you are in, you'll have even more to show for it when you go to apply for college.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Mhm.
When you went to college, and let me get this right, you went to the University of Michigan.
Other one, no. I went to Michigan State University, never to be confused, Amanda. Yes.
Okay, Michigan State. When you went to Michigan State, what was your major? What did you study? Because you said you wanted to be a veterinarian.
I
So
know.
what was your major?
So I studied animal science and I had a specialization in environmental studies and agri-science. And I added that specialization later once I started getting into the environmental work after those internships, because that's already like too far. I'm not like I can't change my major. Like I want to continue on with the credits I have. So I just added a little specialization so I could get some of that environmental studies listed. Um, and I had applied to get to the special program called the Lyman Briggs College, where you like, you do all these special science courses, and everybody who lives in your dorm are all looking to be scientists, either doctors or veterinarians. And I did my first semester there in that dorm, and even my second semester, and I was taking organic chemistry and like all these really hard science classes that you have to take to be a veterinarian. And then I did my internship, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't need all these classes to work in environmental science. So I moved out of that dorm, moved to a different one, and kind of even made a change after my first year to move into a different kind of like pipeline of animal science. So first I was doing animal science pre-vet. That's what required all those additional courses and it made it really complex. And then I moved over to animal science, animal industries. And that one was much more about like the meat that ends up in your grocery store, right?
Okay.
So what we had nutrition courses where we would literally one of our nutrition courses was you would formulate a whole diet for chickens, and they lived on campus at the chicken farm. You would mix their diet, how much protein, how much carbohydrates, how much this to get a certain yield. And so we were looking for the chicken to have, the heaviest weight or, any certain thing you could breed them for. And then at the end of the course, that chicken would go to the farm and get slaughtered. And then we got a whole chicken to eat. So you could eat your whole chicken. animal science was like a very hands-on degree at Michigan State, right? We did dissections, we did nutrition and diets and all that stuff. I really enjoyed it. But it might not be for, it ain't for the weak.
All right. Thank you for that. Animal science. Okay, because I'm not a scientist at
Mhm.
all. But you're right. When I think of animal science, I automatically think of veterinarian,
Yeah,
right? But that is a whole separate degree and separate pipeline, right?
yeah,
So, at one point, I thought that I wanted to be a pharmacist, and organic chem scared me. Okay. That was like, I was like,
yeah.
okay, you want to know what? I can't be a pharmacist because I can't do organic chemistry.
Hmm.
So, what we're saying is that if your desire is to work with animals, if your desire is to work in agriculture, to study animal science, you do not have to be a veterinarian and you don't have to let all of those huge science classes that just hearing them intimidate you.
Hmm.
You don't have to take any of those to actually pursue your goal, right?
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of variety under that animal science like degree umbrella, right? And that'll be so there's when you get to college, there's colleges of all these things, right? So that degree is underneath the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And that's a degree program underneath that college, which is a bachelor's of animal science, right? Bachelor's of Science, animal science. But within that degree, there's different varieties. There's people who are in animal science getting the same degree as me or doing marketing for animal science. So they were going to work for Purina, for all the feed companies, for all the animal genetics companies, and do marketing and do corporate and tech and all that stuff. Still animal science. And then there was me doing industry specific work. I'm learning how to like grow an animal in a food system and how to get it to market and all the inner workings of like biology. And then there are people in animal science who were doing the vet track and they had way more to go. They're going to do their 4-year degree and they're going to go on to vet school after that. Right. So even if you hear something and you're like, okay, I'd like that, but I don't know if that's what I want to do. I didn't even have all that sorted out until I got there to college. I just thought, okay, animal science, that means I got to go be a vet. Sounds fun. And then after a year of doing that and taking those classes, I was like, well, maybe there's something else in here. And that made a big difference. Mhm.
Okay. And just for all of our listeners, this is a 4-ish year undergraduate degree.
Yeah, exactly. And there were folks who were doing certificate programs too that were kind of like separate or similar on maybe like how to be a farrier, the person who shoes horses is like a certificate program, how to be, shorter things that you could do that you would do 2 years and then go on. But yeah, it takes a little bit of research and even just talking to somebody in the career center at a college and asking, hey, like what all does that include, this College of Agriculture and Natural Resources? Because there are people who are doing plant science, people who are doing packaging. That's like one of the most lucrative careers that nobody knows about is packaging. And they were learning like they literally work with all kinds of companies. Everything you buy comes in a box, right? How to make that package as light as possible for shipping, as sustainable as possible, and eco-friendly, and not use styrofoam, and all those kind of expertises that you wouldn't know unless you really talked to somebody or got onto a campus to ask about it.
Okay. You just gave us a lot of knowledge there, and I really need to no
Parse
pun,
it.
but unpack that. Yes. Okay, wait. So what I want to tell our listeners is because you mentioned something that Functional Training Zone really, really likes to hone in on, which are our certificates.
Mhm.
You know, with a lot of youth that we talk to, we realize that not everybody is cut out for the 4-year-ish degrees. That worked for me, right?
Mhm.
And that worked for you, but it
Right.
may not work for, you know,
Yeah.
Joe Smith that's listening to this right now. However, Joe Smith grew up around horses. He loves horses. He loves the state of Maryland.
Mhm.
And his brother was a farrier. His dad was a farrier, but they never really taught him what to do. So now he wants to be a farrier, doesn't know where to start.
Mhm.
Not that you work for Michigan State or any college,
Sure.
but what would you tell him to do? And, knowing that it's a certificate program.
Yeah, there's like almost every degree has some version that's a certificate version, right? Like in the College of Animal Science or in like plant science, right? You had people who were going for a 4-year degree in plant science. You had people who were going for a 2-year degree in golf turf management. Like your whole degree program is learning how to manage the turf on a golf course and learning every detail of that. And after 2 years, you could get hired at any golf course and be their expert on managing that turf. Like that's a whole career right there, right? You could be the College of Ag had a forester degree where you could get a 4-year degree and become a certified forester. There's also one that's like forest technology certificate program, right? So you could learn the more details of what it is to manage a forest and then go get a job doing that. So you don't have to have that whole 4-year. The 2-year programs are usually more like hands-on experiences. They might have some internship component that you have to do within your program, and they're really career focused. So it's like getting you ready to do the job immediately. And then what you always could do is if you get into that 2-year and you're like, hey, I could do this. Maybe college isn't so bad. Like I got this. Then you could transfer and do the 4-year after that. So those 2-year certificates offer a really good like kind of starting point where like I don't want to commit to 4 years. I don't know if I can do all that, but I do want to have a little bit of paperwork, right? I want to get that failure paperwork to have that on my name and make sure people trust me to do this job. And then I can get right out and start making some money, or I can transfer and finish up the 4 years and do the extra credits I need to get a 4-year degree. So I think college gets this big kind of like big billboard and lights, like, gotta go for 4 years, you gotta have this GPA to get in, you gotta take your SATs and do all that. Yes, true, but there's some things that you can do before that instead of that that can still result in you making money, right? And having some paperwork and being able to walk across a stage without committing to that huge expense of college or the huge timeline of college. And then you can always do more later if you want to. Mhm.
That is awesome. So, I told you a portion of my family grew up in Long Island, and two of my uncles were actually superintendents of golf courses.
Oh,
And
wow.
golf turf management
Yes.
is really a
It's a thing.
big
It's a
deal.
thing. Yes.
It is really a thing. I want to let everybody know that, like, golf turf management
Yes.
is probably one of the top jobs at a golf course, and there's a
Mhm.
lot that goes into it.
Yes.
I'm an accountant by trade, and I also worked with a lot of the companies that sold like the John Deere lawnmowers and the Toro lawnmowers, and golf turf management, like the turf manager was in charge of purchasing all of that equipment. So there's a lot that goes into it, and thank you for bringing that up because that's something that I don't think that for our young folks that really like golf, want to be a professional golfer,
Mhm.
however, just didn't find their way into professional golf, but know the job, know it inside and out. Golf
Yeah.
turf management really is a profession that is thriving and
Mhm.
pays very well.
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get back onto conservationism and what you do with your business, Deeply Rooted, how did that all start? How did you decide to start your own business and where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah. Great point. So I worked for the US Fish and Wildlife Service, which was that kind of internship program. I converted into another one that was a 2-year long, where you'd like go to school during the school year and then go do an internship at a wildlife refuge and then go back to school, and then come back for another internship. So if you did 2 summers, then you could convert into a career federal position. So that's how I got my job in the federal service as an official park ranger. And when I went and finished my internships, you had to go meet with the regional director and talk to them and see where they're going to place you. It was this big deal. And I told them, like, I really would love to work at an urban wildlife refuge. I'd love to work at a refuge that's near a city where I could work with people who were like me, who could see someone who looks like them, who would be like, okay, well, maybe I can do this career too. And they're like, yeah, Brianna, we got you. We got you. We're going to get you a good spot. And they did send me to a spot. And they're like, here's your choice. You can go to one option, and it's in Iowa. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? I said urban. And they said, well, this place is it's technically an urban refuge because urban refuges are within 25 miles of a major city. And this one is near Des Moines, Iowa. It's 24 miles from Des Moines, Iowa. So I had the job to either take it or not take it. And I got other job offers from like Purina, to work in like some of their plants and manage the folks who like were in the chicken plants and stuff, to do marketing kind of level stuff, things that are a little bit different, back end side of the animal industry. And I was like, I already put in all these summers, 3 summers, with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I might as well just go and take this job. So I moved to Iowa. I went there. It was a whole different style of life. Mind you, I'm going from like Michigan, Metro Detroit to Des Moines, Iowa. Um, and was a park ranger there, had my full-time job, and I was like, you guys are really gonna let me do all this work? Like I'm in charge of some stuff. I'm a child. Is what I felt like. Um, so I worked there and spent about 2 years there. And then I was, mind you, I'm like 22, 23 at the time. And I'm like, all my friends were retirees. And I was like, I need to get out and about. Like I would go back home to Detroit and like get off the plane and just like nod at every Black person I saw. Like, hey, hey, nice to see you, nice to see you. So I was ready to go by that point. And I got a call to come work in Philadelphia and to become a supervisor at John Hines National Wildlife Refuge at Tinicum, which is in Philadelphia proper. A dream job managing the education program there. I had to supervise a team of environmental educators. I had to handle all the scheduling. And mind you, we were doing like 18,000 kids through programs in a year, right? So all that scheduling, all that supervision, writing performance reviews, doing all that. It was a huge jump to go from being part of the team to being a leader on the team. And then I stayed there for about 7 years, learned so much during that time, and then took a job in headquarters as the national coordinator for environmental education and youth employment. And that was a job I had wanted my whole career, was to become the national coordinator for environmental education and be able to like really influence all the other rangers and how they were teaching and what the way that we teach about nature. And I was super excited to get it. And was there for about 2 years. And then as you know, like the administration change happened, the second, Trump reelection happened, and things really changed from our level of work, right? During the last time that he was in office, I was in the field. Got caught up in what I was doing, but now I was in headquarters, and I was one of those kind of folks who was managing at like the really high levels and working on policy and doing all that and managing huge contracts. Now I was the one working on SCA so that they could do $1 million contract to provide those internships, right? I was the one who was now in charge of them somehow, right? So we saw a lot of changes, and it was really difficult and really disheartening to see everything that we built up all those years that I've like worked and contracts we got just crossed out one by one, right? Right before I had left, we just got a $2.5 million grant that was just for City of Baltimore to hire students to work in internships and pay them $25 an hour, working out in nature, doing community gardens, doing climate change work. And we had it funded. We had just found a partner who was going to hire all the students for us and manage them. And we were ready to hire interns in May. And that whole grant was erased in April. And just seeing some of those things like from that close and so much time we put in, so much effort and the mood around the place, it was really sad because people who work in conservation, it's not a lot of us really. And we take that on as our whole identity, right? Like I'm a park ranger, I'm a conservationist. And when you invest so much of your identity in your job, it's really hard to see it taken apart. So, and I had to start changing language. Oh, we can't say this is for just this audience. Let's say this is for everyone, for all. And I'm like, well, but it is for this audience, right? So what I decided in doing all that, they offered some buyout packages, and we're like, okay, we want to reduce the workforce. If you want to take this optional buyout, then we'll pay you for 6 months. And I was thinking, well, that could be a good on-ramp for me to move into my business full time. And go and be able to say out loud, hey, I'm doing work for the Black community to get us reconnected with nature, right? Because that wasn't really a thing that we could say anymore. So I want to be able to do the work that was important to me for the audiences that matter to me and be able to say that out loud. I had founded Deeply Rooted Outdoor Education a couple years before all this happened because I was doing some work on social media. You can follow me at Ranger_Bree on Instagram. and I was in a group chat with a bunch of other like young Black scientists, environmental folks. And I don't know if you remember during COVID, there was that like whole situation, and you probably know because you're from New York, in Central Park, where the guy was walking and bird watching and that like Christian Cooper, Amy Cooper thing. Remember, she was like, her
Yes,
dog
I
was
do
off
remember.
leash. And he was bird watching and he was like, "Hey, could you put your dog on a leash?" And she called the police and was like, "I'm afraid for my life. He's threatening me." And it was a huge national story during COVID because she couldn't believe that like he could just be a black man out bird watching in the woods, following the rules. And she put his life in danger by trying to make that call. So in the group chat, me and all my other Black conservation buddies, we're like, this is ridiculous. Like, we need to start letting people know that this is like a real thing. There are Black bird watchers. So we started an initiative called Black Birders Week. And it's every May at the end of the month. And after we did that, it went viral. There was like Black birds all over the country. We had like events going on. I was getting speaking engagements. So I started the business as a way to kind of like hold those things separate from my federal work so I could say what I wanted to say over here and not be associated with, the federal government. And so I already had the LLC, I already had the business. I had just been doing like a couple speaking engagements and, community things. And so I moved into the business full time and I've been doing it full time since April of this year. But it was founded in 2022.
Okay, great. I want to hear more about this Black Bird Watchers Week because for twice now, I'm not going to say 2 years in a row. It felt like 2 years in a row, but it wasn't. Um, at the end or during the fifth grade year, um, here in Southern Maryland, in Charles County, the schools go to this place called the Nanjemoyne Conservatory.
Okay.
And part of the field trip is watching. They give us all binoculars. I happen to be one of the moms that chaperone.
Nice.
So I get out there and they give me
Hmm.
binoculars and we get to watch all of the birds. I'm not going to say that we see very many. However, our personal home does back up to the woods and there is a
Oh,
huge bald eagle's nest.
what?
So I have never seen a bald eagle before I moved to this beautiful home, before I
Yeah.
moved to this beautiful state. I thought that bald eagles were only in Montana or
Hmm.
Iowa or
Hmm.
Alaska, right?
Yes.
But every now and then, about once a year,
Ah.
I do see a bald eagle. And it is like amazing. And I do try to, zoom in with my phone. We do have one pair of binoculars in the house, but I run in, get my binoculars and like go outside and like show the kids the bald eagle. So that is amazing that now there is a Blackbird Watchers Week. When we see that bald eagle, I'm going to take a picture of us outside with our binoculars. It is a huge nest, and seeing a bald eagle is definitely probably one of the greatest things that I've ever gotten to experience because it's a huge bird.
It is. It's massive. It's
Yeah,
massive.
it's massive. So there's plenty of deer around here, and whenever there is, a dead deer carcass, that's usually when we get to see the bald eagles the most. So I do love that aspect of living in Southern Maryland, getting to see the birds, and then of course my kids getting to go to this Nanjemoyne sanctuary. So
Yeah.
definitely, thank you for that. What are some things that people can look forward to when they visit your website, Deeply Rooted, and how can they get in contact with you? And what can we expect from the organization?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And I'm a little bit jealous of your bald eagle in your backyard.
Yes, I mean, I always see the nest, especially now
Yeah.
that all the leaves have fallen. I always
Right.
see the nest. Now is probably the best time to see the nest. I know exactly where it is. But in terms of me, like I get to see the bald eagle probably about once a year when I'm, go out to the bus. So yeah, it's that's its home. And we're like, don't touch those trees.
Yep. Yeah, they're protected. Like you cannot touch those trees. You'll be in big trouble, right?
Yeah,
And they're
yeah. It's on
huge.
our property, but we do not like touch those trees, like and the
Yeah.
surrounding trees. We're like, no one touch the trees.
Yes, be looking out because they lay their eggs like in February, March, and they'll be sitting on them. And a bald eagle pair, they live in the same nest every year. So they will just keep
Okay.
adding more and more sticks to it. So that's been the same pair you've been watching this whole time living in that nest.
Okay.
The huge, huge privilege. Um, Yes. So deeply rooted. We do a combination of different things, right? One of them is public programming. So just last Sunday, actually, I was leading an autumn beginners birding hike. where I brought, we had binoculars. We had actually a binocular company sponsor the hike, and they provided like coffee and donuts and binoculars for everybody to test out. So you can find information on that on the website. It's droe.org, droe.org for deeply rooted outdoor education.org. We have an event calendar there. I don't do public programs as frequently. I often work with schools and like camps and community groups. So if you're in any participating organization, even a church, you guys can contact me and I can come out and do a nature program for you either at your site or at another site somewhere near you in Maryland, like a guided hike. I'm leading a hike for the Jack and Jills coming up in April at a site near, where a lot of their community lives. So we could connect that way. Also with schools and teachers, I do professional development. So teaching teachers the skills of a park ranger, how they can take their students outside in the schoolyard to study science, to study math, and to get to know the environment right outside their walls. Because we literally sit in school all day in the same four walls. Like it's hard to stay engaged, right? But if we could go out in the schoolyard and study the plants that are there and study the environment and look for birds, then that'd be a great way to get students, back engaged in their learning. So I work with teachers to do that as well. And then the last thing that Deeply Rooted does is archery. We have a mobile archery range. You can learn to shoot a bow and arrow. I'm super excited maybe to work with FTZ in the future to have a night where we can bring archery and let folks try that. And it's a lot of fun and it's a great way to engage outside, do some physical activity and try something that you might never have tried before. So the website's a great place to start. There's like a contact us thing that pops up that you can send a message. If you are the young tech crowd, always Instagram is an option. My Instagram is at ranger_Bri, BRI. And the Deeply Rooted Instagram is at Deeply Rooted Outdoor Ed. So you can search those up and follow us. And yeah, we'd love to connect. We're open to all kinds of opportunities and happy to connect and work with any audience in any place to get connected with nature.
Great, thank you. For those of our listeners that are interested in literature, actually physical literature, we do love our Instagram. We love our Facebook pages. We love the photo ops and the websites. But is there any literature that you would want to reference or, just, let people know that are interested in the field?
Yeah, yeah. One great thing to get is a field guide to birds, right? The one
Okay.
my favorite one is called the Kaufman Field Guide to Birds. It's actually also waterproof. And all the birds have a picture and they show the birds in each stage, right? So birds, their feathers change sometimes a year. The male and female look different. So I always like to keep a Kaufman field guide on me so I can know what I'm seeing and what the birds are. That's one that like I just enjoy. You can find it on Amazon or even in like bookstores, they have it. The other literature I probably recommend if you're thinking about like getting into some of these things, there's a really amazing, he's like a poet and a writer, J. Drew Lanham. He's a Black man and he's still a professor I think he's at Clemson University. And he puts out some incredible work about his connection to nature and our world and how people think and see. One of his main ones, I think he's got two or three books and another one coming out next year. Um, but his work is really incredible. I'm trying to think of the one. He has one called The Home Place, which is memoirs of his connection to the outdoors. Joy is Justice, and then Sparrow Envy that he did. But he's like an award-winning fellow, and he's just great. So I think that's
Great.
another good place to start. If you want to see like someone who maybe looks like you or thinks like you or is from somewhere where you're from, how he's connected to nature. He's great.
Right. One thing I learned with bird watching is that bird watch books on bird watching are actually categorized by color, by the bird's color.
Right.
So it's not like bald eagle bee, you're expecting that to be in the front, but it's in the color with the black section or black and white or like multicolored. So I
Mhm.
thought that that was really interesting that the books are organized with like all of the different colors of birds. And then that's where you would find that bird that you're looking for.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that
It
was,
depends on the guide too. Some guides do it by color. Some of them do it by like where you saw it. Right. This one was by the water. This one was in the trees. So you find the one that kind of fits how you relate to them best. But before even worrying about what their names are, like I just want people to just slow down and start noticing a little bit,
Okay.
right? Like how many times you just leave your house, get right in the car, go somewhere, you don't even remember you're driving there, but you know you got there, right?
Right, right,
We do that
right.
so much. And if we could just slow down a little bit, like when I walk out of my house, I just like take a second and listen. I hear like two or three different birds calling. It's not important to be able to say, oh, that's this, that's that. I can do that because I'm a huge nerd who's obsessed with birds. But just to enjoy that fact, right? Like I came out of my house a couple months ago and I go to touch my car door and I will slow down, look for a second. There was like a stick bug on my rearview mirror. I had never seen a stick bug in my life. It looked like I thought it was just a stick. And I put on my Instagram stories and I was like, yo, look what I just found. Like I wasn't in the woods. I didn't go out to Western Maryland. You could literally find stuff in your driveway, in your grass that's interesting that like maybe is worth stopping to look at. Take some pictures, share it with friends. Like that's a big part of being a conservationist and caring about nature is just stopping to notice it. So that's one of my huge things I try to tell folks is just do me a favor, as a ranger breed thing, just stop and find something. Send me like a blurry picture of a bird that you saw in your backyard and be like, what is this? What was it doing? Find a bug, find a nut that fell off of a tree and break it open and see what's inside, right? Like that activity of just getting more aware of what's around you, it's super important for your mental health, for mindfulness, for just connection to the world around you, that's a great place to start.
So I do have to admit something to everybody. I am super afraid of spiders, but
Mhm.
I like to take pictures of them because I
Okay.
think that the photos of them
Hmm.
are very beautiful.
Yeah.
So when I see a spider, I get nervous and I get scared.
Yes.
And then I get really brave and I get my phone and I zoom in and I take a picture of it.
Wow. Okay, Amanda, that's
And then
impressive.
one day I
Uh-huh.
want to make a spider calendar.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
If you see a post of FTZ spider calendar,
That's
you
you.
know where it
That's
came
you. That's
from.
Amanda. And it's crazy you mentioned that because and you know me, I'm like, I'm ready to breathe. I love outside. And I appreciate bugs, but I like don't like bugs to touch me ever. And I don't like spiders. And I am so scared of them. I'm like, oh, that's a cool spider, but I want to take a picture of it so I can share it, but I don't like to look at it. So I'll put my phone up here and go and take a picture so I can't even look at it. Like they just weird me out. I appreciate them, but they also weird me out. So I'm glad that you have found a way to appreciate spiders. I would buy your spider calendar and gift it to a friend because I don't want to see it in my house on the wall. But you know, I support you. I support your spiders.
Yeah, thank you, but I did want to mention that because I understand when you're coming from and you say, hey, you know what, I've never seen this stick bug before. I've never seen this insect before. I've never seen this bird before. And I do want to take a picture of it and share it. And there are a lot of us out there that really do enjoy nature, enjoy everything that it has to give. And, being a environmentalist and a conservationist isn't just making sure that you organize your trash and put the recyclables, away from the regular trash and we're picking up our animal waste. There's more to it than just that. And the world, obviously needs our help to do all of those things. So you have mentioned your Instagram and your website a couple of times, but I just want everybody to hear it again, know what it is, start following you on Instagram so that we can all share our pictures of interesting spiders. Um, bald eagle nests and all of the things that we encounter during the day. So there's one more thing that I do want to ask you that I think is really important. What advice would you give yourself 15 years ago if you could go back professionally? What advice would you give your younger self on how you could really obtain your dreams as to where you are now?
Yeah. So I'm 33 now. I turned 33 on Thanksgiving. So 15 years ago, I would have been, what is the math there, man? I would have been
Maybe 10 years ago.
maybe 10 years. Okay. Okay. So 23. Right. So that's just post college. I think probably the advice I would have given myself then is to just kind of be okay with with being alone. You know, I had just like finished college. I took a job, like I said, in Iowa, and I was like, oh, this is awful, right? All my friends, I saw them online. They're all hanging out, going places back home in Michigan. They, are making friends. And like, I was like in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by people who really didn't look like me. And that was like a huge deal for me, right? But if I had probably just like kind of gotten used to it, found like a hobby, done something I could get used to. Like there are people at my job who are like, oh, you want to come by our patio? Like, whatever. I was like, no, not really. Sounds boring. I said no to a lot of those things at first. And it wasn't until I got desperate when I had nothing to do and I was just like going to work, coming home, that I started saying yes. And I learned so much from those people and just sitting there casually in their backyards and talking, and even people who were a lot older than you. Like you can just sit and talk to them and you will learn so many things, right? Like me and my husband, we're working on planning our wedding. And one of those folks who would invite us to their backyard, we finally went, and they ended up sitting down and telling us about how they were planning their whole retirement. And he came and sat down with us and looked at my retirement thing, like my TSP or 401k package, showed me how to set everything up so that we could ensure that we had like a future and a retirement that would be able to pay off, right? There's no way, like my family doesn't really know a lot of those things, right? What knowledge we don't have in our friend group or with our family, other people do have it and they do want to share it with you, but you got to at least open up that connection. And that led me to jobs in different places. It led me to, saving differently, being more financially like secure. And if I hadn't taken those opportunities that like I probably didn't think I was interested in, it would have set me back so much farther. Right. So I think that goes hand in hand with what you guys do with mentoring. Like if you get a mentor and you're like, I don't know if we're going to connect, just try. Ask them that question you said before, man, of like, so how'd you get into this field? How'd you end up here? People love to talk about their interests, talk about themselves, talk about what they do, and to share knowledge with you. If you have any inkling of knowledge, you're like, I actually don't know a lot about a 401k or having like financial literacy. Could you tell me more? Would you be willing to share and sit down with me? He brought his wife. He had made notes for us. We all got at the computer. We set up every account that I had on my little 401k package to see which fund to invest in. Like that kind of stuff made a huge difference in just making a connection with folks, both, in my career, in my personal life. Like the people who you think might not be your people, give them a chance, learn from them, and then kind of go from there.
Thank you for that. That's so interesting. So basically, what you're saying is get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
So we say that a lot here. And, sometimes in order to grow, you do have to leave your comfort circle, right? You do have to leave all of the things that are familiar to you and, actually go out there and meet different people, understand where other people come from, and really learn from their experiences just to enhance yourself further.
Yeah, definitely. And
Thank
you
you
have a
very
lot
much for that.
to share too, right? Like those people don't
And
know
you
what.
can share your knowledge as well. Yeah, we're all mentors to somebody. We're all maturing and mentoring as we're learning.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Definitely. Thank you. So again, you've mentioned several times, thank you, for interviewing with us. Why are platforms like Functional Training Zones so important to young adults?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think just it opens a lot of doors, right? Like even with deeply rooted, I think part of my work is like reconnecting folks with nature, but they probably already had some connection before I came along, right? But I might just be like inviting them a little bit closer or putting them like a little bit closer to this connection, and kind of I think about people and that as like kind of two chains and like the link is missing in between. Things like functional training zone, businesses like deeply rooted, we kind of just bring in that link to get you connected somewhere else, right? And if that's just like the stepping stone that you need to get there, and otherwise, you would have still been sitting here at the end of your chain, like, I don't know what to do next. I guess this is as far as I can go. But when one of these orgs gives you the link to connect you, take the opportunity, right? I think you can be like super excited when you meet them and do it, and then you kind of get home and you're like, oh yeah, I gotta get back to that, right? But these kind of groups, if you continue to show up and come to the events and connect with the mentor and make those meetings, you can move so much further and so much faster in your life, because people do want to help you. Like I think there's a kind of misnomer that like everybody's on their own, it's every man for himself. Not true, especially not in our community. People want to help each other. They want to reach back and they want to say, hey, you're interested in you like golfing? I know somebody who's in golf turf management. You want to go out with them for a day? Right? Like you don't know that unless you actually sit there and talk and make that connection. And that's sometimes the hard part, or feels like a hard part, but it pays off to do that. So I think that's where FTZ comes in helping you make those links and connections to really get yourself moving faster.
Thank you so much. Again, one last time, how can our listeners connect with you, find your organization? What are all of your social media platforms?
Yes, definitely. So the website, the regular old website is DROE, Deeply Rooted Outdoor Education. So the letters DROE.org. You can subscribe. There's a pop-up for our event, so you get an email when we have things going on. The Instagram for my personal Instagram is at Ranger_Bree, and it's BRI. And then our Instagram for Deeply Rooted is at Deeply Rooted Outdoor Ed. And that's it.
That is
That's
awesome.
yeah.
I am excited to connect with you on social media
Yes.
when I, start taking pictures of my spiders.
You can
I
still send them.
will,
I will still accept your spider photos. Okay.
I will send them to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna go outside right now. I believe I have a picture of the bald eagle's nest, but I'm gonna send that to you also.
Please do.
Thank you so much for telling us about Black Bird Watching Week at the end of May. We will look out for that.
Yes. Yeah. You can search it
And
online. Hashtag Black Birders Week. And the organization that we started that's like a nonprofit to handle all that is called Black AF in STEM. That's the group of all those other environmental folks. So you can find them online too, Black AF in STEM. That's the Instagram handle.
great. Thank you very much. And we will definitely subscribe so that we will know everything that is going on with Deeply Rooted in the environment. And folks can always share all their pictures and all of the neat things that they find throughout. Brianna, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for all of that knowledge that you gave us about, colleges that if you're interested in something, it's not always a 4-year degree. It can be a certificate program, things that you can get in while you're in high school, right? That are sometimes free or low cost, or waivers are provided, right? Like we talk about that a lot. So thank you for all of that, mentors that, you found that helped you. All of this is going on. Deeply Rooted is in the state of Maryland. So that is definitely a big gem for us. And I'm just happy to have talked to you and to have gotten all this knowledge. So thank you very much.
Yes, yes, I appreciate it. And I need to connect with you and your daughter. We need to do some horse things, okay? And do some equestrian stuff. We can go birding on
We
horseback. It'll be a whole vibe.
we do. I can sit on a horse.
Hey, that's the first step. You gotta sit down.
I can sit on a horse. I can help you tack up. I am the
Okay.
tack up mom. I am great at, tacking up. My daughter is the one. She can take you 4 miles out, jump
Nice.
off, jump in a creek and ride the 4 miles back. She
Okay.
is the biggest superstar in this, her and her girlfriend.
Nice.
Um, Shout out to all of the equestrians, that ride in Southern Maryland, but you can always see her at the local best shows. She does show at the Black Eyed Susan shows at the Equestrian Center in Upper Marlboro.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, would love to check her out. That sounds awesome. It was a pleasure
Thank you
talking to
very
you,
much for
Amanda.
that.
I
Shameless
appreciate it.
plug, shameless plug. It's my daughter,
Shameless
so
plug.
everyone had to endure that. Thank you very much, Rihanna. Good luck with everything. And thank you for all of the information. And this is Functional Training Zone with the Uncommon Connector. Bye bye.
Thanks.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It
Gets the people going.
It's
No!
It's your boy JR dropping them beats.